23rd edition of the About Small Business podcast. If you're enjoying what we do with the podcast, can you please hit the like and subscribe button and also the little notification bell. That way you're going to get a notification anytime a new episode drops. In this episode, I'm talking to Jordan Jewitt for Accountants for the Trade. Now, as you will see from what Jordan is wearing, Jordan, you're not the image of a typical accountant.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear from your from all of your merchandise. You're very specific in terms of the niche that you're going for.
Yeah.
And you meeting you, having met you, and what's around your office, it's an amazing atmosphere. It's not traditional.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I think we do try to stand out a little bit by being the bright and colourful and make sure that what we're doing comes across with our personalities in it, and the image of our brand should reflect that, really.
You mentioned personalities. Accountants do get a really bad rap. I have interviewed my own accountant, and she's absolutely lovely. And again, it's not that traditional image.
Yeah. In
your view, do you think the stereotype's fair?
No, I think I've worked in a few different practices, and I think the stereotypical accountant is your traditional suit and tie accountant. I do think that is changing. I think the industry has changed, or even in the last 15 years that I've been in, I think it has changed. We're probably at the extreme of that, but I do see it changing. I mean, your big four accountants are always going to be a little bit more stereotypical, your accountants.
But that's where it's come from. I mean, I have worked, I used to work in recruitment. Yeah. And I remember going down on a recruitment drive to London. Just basically because they wanted us to try and find staff for them. They made things impossibly hard because it's like you've got to be a genius basically to work for those guys.
Yeah, you do.
And but there was one of them. I think there were the big five or the big six at the time, and they brought this guy out to prove that they weren't androids or whatever it was, and it's like that's really.
You shouldn't really have to prove that, should you? It should come across in what you're doing. Yeah.
But it is interesting, like I say, having met you, and straight away you've got this big personality. The orange, which is, as I mentioned, that's my favourite.
It quickly became my favourite colour. Never wore orange before I set up the business, and now everything I own's orange.
No, but I mean, it certainly marks you out from the crowd.
Yeah, it does. And I think the classic accountant colours is, if you actually look at accountants' logos, it's pretty much all blue. It's blue and greys and blacks in there. It's very monotonous, and we just want to stand out from the crowd. And accountancy is quite a hard thing because you rely so much on referrals from your own clients. Yeah. So trying to set your brand up to be different and actually look different and feel different, but then actually follow through on that. It's not just about having a really good brand. If you don't eat, live, breathe your brand, you're not really going to then appeal to people anyway. So it's that's part of it. And I guess we've just tried to kind of tailor the brand to our personality, and I think we've captured that quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I love it. The other thing that is kind of crossing my mind is we've mentioned that sort of stereotypical image, which is possibly a little unfair. However, having said that, with accountancy, there is that degree of seriousness. Yeah. It's like, no one wants to fall foul of the Batman, HMRC, anything like that. I mean, I'm just curious, because, I mean, you've clearly put a lot of thought into this. And I think there's a lot of self-employed people will do. You look at the marketing side of things, and, when you're choosing your colours, orange is kind of, it's, as we discussed earlier on, it's the vibrancy, it's fun. Yeah. I'm just curious, did you get any marketing advice or look up anything? And do you think it's anything that might put people off, or do we think those times are kind of behind us? Yeah,
I think where it comes down to is, I think once you've had a conversation with us, it makes sense, the brand. I think it does become clear. So if that puts somebody off, they're probably not the right person for us in the first place. And we don't necessarily want to be a blanket, we'll do everything and we'll deal with everybody. We're quite specific in who we want to work with, and that's more of learning over the last 3 years, going, well, we'll help anybody. Well, actually, if you're not the right fit for us, neither of us come away from it having had a brilliant experience. So I think you've got early days in business, you kind of have to take on as much work as you can naturally. But I think one thing we've getting a lot better at, especially over the last year and a half, is making it clear, right, this is our expectations at the start, and this is what we need from you, and therefore this is what we can deliver. And I think being a little bit more picky. So I guess if we do put anybody off with our out there brand, you're probably not gonna get the most from our service anyway. So I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing.
No, I think that's probably a great philosophy.
Yeah.
And as you said earlier on, if you're doing the job for people,
Yeah.
that is fundamentally what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah, it is.
You know, if my accounts provide me with good service,
Yeah.
then I don't care if they turn up in clown shoes.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, and I don't think it's just necessarily accountancy. I think the world's probably changed a little bit since COVID and working from home, but is in what you wear doesn't necessarily affect what you do. And yes, of course, you need to come across formal in times in accountancy. If I'm sat with a bank manager, I need to be portraying myself in a certain way. But I think especially since work from home, we've kind of turned things on the head a little bit, going, well, actually, what you're wearing is not the be-all and end-all of what you do, and I think that's a good thing. I think I'd much rather have people comfortable with not necessarily just what they're wearing, but comfortable in be yourself, let your personality come across, and clients really respond well to that, and it just lets you build that relationship much quicker than if you're right, yes, no, just deal with you on email. No, we need to actually build a relationship, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what most small businesses are about. It's a relationship led, so that's what we want to do. So
did you start off as accountants for the trade then? Was that the name that you set up, or?
Yeah. So I guess it was accidental. So like all good ideas, that didn't come up with it. So the way that we'd ended up with the name was because of the industry specialization. But what my very first client, and I'll name drop him as well because he doesn't mind. So it's PK Kitchens, which is he manufactures kitchens in.
I know PK Kitchens. Yeah. Played his wedding actually.
Oh, did you? That was a small world when you get taught. So what had originally happened, he was my first client, and obviously you bend over backwards for your first client, build up a really good relationship, still a client there, really kind of long-term client. But what I guess accidentally happened, which I didn't realise, he then worked with a joiner, a plasterer, a plumber, and before I knew it, he then referred us to all of the guys he worked with. And I guess I woke up after a little while and went, actually, a lot of my clients are tradesmen here, and there's such a loyalty within construction. Those guys are so loyal to each other. So if you do a really good job for one, you get referred to another, and I guess it snowballed into going, oh, actually, I'm dealing with mostly tradesmen. Well, why not focus on that? Let's do it. And then the name kind of was the final piece of the jigsaw to go, well, actually, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be bright. We're going to be colourful. Well, that's where we ended up with the name, I guess. But yeah, it was accidental more than planned, but then we built into it to develop it.
That does seem so. Obviously through doing the podcast, it does seem that there's an awful lot of things that happen just by accident, because I suppose the demand is shaping it. Isn't it?
Yeah.
And as you say, so you're getting those recommendations.
Yeah.
And I do know, having played, we should shout out Eddie from Peak.
Yeah.
And through doing his wedding, then obviously played his mates for his weddings and things like that.
Which will practically be all tradesmen anyway, because of the way the industry works. Yeah.
It works. I mean, that's natural. But I mean, so why orange?
I think where we tried to go with the orange, we looked at high-vis jackets and went, let's have a yellow or orange, and we just leaned more towards the orange, going, let's get it nice and bright. But that was it. It very quickly became two colours, and we went with the orange. Again, it was just trying to. We want to come across as tradesmen. The words and the language I use is very, or when I use them with my clients, it's a lot more specific. On right, we're almost a tradesman in ourselves. It's just that our trade is accountancy, and that's the way I like to look at things. So that then trying to reflect that, going, well, let's have the scaffy board table and let's have the high vis jackets is what we're wearing and nice and bright, and we kind of blend in with a tradesman is what we've always tried to do.
I mean, to a degree, I mean, a lot of tradesmen they are very matter of fact.
Yeah.
And they're not really interested in the sort of pomp.
Yeah.
So by doing it's they want to feel like sort of they do their job, they're very good at it, and I think generally they just want you to do yours.
And that's something that I think we, not to blow our own trumpet too much, but I think we do really well. So I remember having conversations with some of my previous managers years ago in previous jobs, and the consensus was, you're doing too much for people. There's a limit. We can't charge for all of the work that you do. I'm going too far, I'm helping too much. And I used to get that as a criticism, going, you're doing too much to help. And it was something that worried us setting up as, what happens if I'm not charging enough and I'm doing far too much work? And what I've tried to do is go, let's turn what is perceived as my weakness into my biggest strength, going, well, actually, let's set up so that we do everything for you. It's not kind of give you a choice. Go, well, what we'll do is you do the bare minimum, then you outsource the rest to us and let us take care of it. And it's our way of going, well, let's turn my weakness into my strength, going, well, actually, what we want to do is you just get on with your job, and if it costs you X amount a month, that's fine, because what you should be able to do is fit an extra job in. You should be able to do more work in that time to cover the exactly. Do what you're good at, let the professionals deal with the rest of it. And that was a key philosophy right from the start, going, we need to just take everything off a client. And a lot of my clients, I'll have heard us say this, but the more you do, the more you're likely to break. So let us deal with it, then we're not having to charge you for going and fixing it. So you're better off just letting us deal with it in the first place.
That's actually, I mean, I know you've not meant it as that, but that's actually a really good sales pitch for your service, because it's like, if you are, it's like, well, I suppose with your trade guys, the amount of jobs that they must be doing from Bosch DIY.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm terrible at DIY.
Yeah.
And so it's anything like that. It's like, well, look, I can go out and I can do something else that I'm good at.
Yeah.
Or I can do a really botched job and try to fix a kitchen tap and then onto the kitchen.
And then you paid somebody double the amount to come and fix it in the first place.
It is an interesting one. Like I say, I know you're not intending to sell there, but what a great way to explain it, because it's, it could cost you more.
Yeah, that's it. And I think the time part of it as well. And I've got a lot of clients with young families as well. And for me, it's trying to give people the time to do what you want, rather than, I think as soon as you mention finance, people, I get a little bit, anxious about it. And that's I think you then, when you're stressing about something, it takes you longer to do it, and you're not doing it day in, day out like what we are. And I think it's such an important point to go, well, actually, you just do what you need to do. And for just getting very specific on what I mean by that. So we like to go, right, you do your sales invoicing. You invoice your customer because you know exactly what work you've done, you know what materials has went in it, you know what you charge, and you do that part of it. Take a picture of your receipt, as in your expenses, your fuel, whatever else. From that point, we do the rest. So it's not I've got to do my own bookkeeping is what we call it in the industry, or I've got to do my bank rec or things like that. I just keep things nice and simple. Go, you invoice your customer and take a picture of your receipt. Us and our guys, I'll take care of the rest for you, and we'll shout when there's a problem, and we'll make sure if we're missing something, we're shouting, going, right, you need to get that sorted for us. And it just lets you focus on what you want to do rather than dealing with all.
It makes your service more efficient as well, because you know exactly where you are with everything. It's just picking up on what you'd said about people's reaction to finance. It's interesting because it's almost, dare I say, it's almost cool to not be good at math. Isn't it?
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
I mean, for me, as part of my job, I run the punctuation show, and I'm an English specialist.
Right.
And as soon as you tell people that, with any written communication, people are even teachers, because I deal with teachers, even teachers get really paranoid, because I've set myself up as a punctuation show. They think I'm going to be some sort of absolute plum that's going around.
The grammar police, yeah.
And I mean, which I would never do because it's just rude.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that people are far more. They don't like being bad at spelling. They
Yeah.
don't like being bad at written or verbal communication. To the point where, if you're not bad at communication, it almost comes across as arrogance. But with finance, people are kind of okay about that.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that creates like quite a big problem, sort of more broad problem in society?
I think personal finance in particular, yes, that in I've got 4 very close friends, and they are sick to death of me talking about finance, and I've got one person in particular, I'm not mentioning his name. I've got one person in particular, terrible at finance. We're talking like credit card debt. We're talking just not really understanding how much money he makes to be able to then make sure you spend within your limits. And basically for the last 5 years, I've been not whinging at him, probably whinging at him, but educating them is the more diplomatic way of putting it, about not necessarily preaching about what he should be doing, but as in just giving him tips. And he actually said it was probably about 3-4 months ago, he just started to get it, and he's now in the best financial position he's ever been in. I'm not trying to big myself up there. I'm just trying to illustrate. I think normal everyday people don't really put as much emphasis on it. It's I'll get a payday and then I'll be all right, and then I'll get a payday again and I'll be all right. And I think that's quite a dangerous long-term approach. It's very much short mindset, isn't it? But yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure you will probably agree with this, obviously, given the nature of what you do and the fact that you are self-employed. But that really does change when you become self-employed, doesn't it? Because you have to kind of make contingencies. I remember when I decided I was going to become self-employed, conversations with my wife, it's like, right, okay, and we start, just really tightening our personal finances to the point where we were just like overpaying on our mortgage, so that was down. We've made a decision. My wife is very successful in her career, and it made more sense for us and for me to kind of take a gamble in a way, but give a bit more flexibility. But the difference from knowing, all right, I've got this coming in every month, and then that going out, and it's actually puts you in a really kind of dangerous situation if that stops.
So I completely agree that you should be thinking more about it. Just to put a figure on it, I'd probably say about 30-40% of our clients, and it might be the industry without being disrespectful in saying that, but is in probably about 30-40% don't think like that still. Is in it is a I'll just kind of see what happens, and that's part of what I see my job being is.
But I think you've been quite conservative with that estimate, to be honest. That's even talking broadly, not just industry specific.
In I guess part of what I see my job is the education part of it. Now, what I don't like to see ourselves as accountants, I go, right, there's your accountancy bill, there's your tax bill, see you next year. That's not really what I like to do. It's part of the education, the advice. That's what we're good at, and that's what in being able to educate. Going, well, actually, if you lost your main contract right now, you've only got enough money in the bank for a month. Could you replace that contract within a month? Well, no. So what we need to do is get cash balance up there. Say 3 months, 6 months to give us that time to react to things.
About a more broad, I suppose, kind of financial advice.
I've got to be careful because I'm not regulated to give financial advice, but I think it's just good business.
Communicating the accounts in such a way that
exactly.
Make informed decisions.
Exactly.
Informed business decisions, really.
And what I've always liked about being an accountant, I had no idea that this was going to happen. So I started in accountancy 17, 18, I think is when I got into accountancy. Really? And it was quite, because I skipped the uni part of it and went straight into the apprentice part of it.
If we can just take a step back from that, I mean, so at 17, 18, you must have been sort of fairly focused quite young. Have you just always been good at maths?
Yeah, so I think I was good at so I see mental arithmetic and maths as being very different. I am terrible at mental arithmetic. I can't just quickly add. I've always had a calculator. That's probably part of the problem. But whereas maths, as in like mechanical engineering part of maths, like physics part of maths, always enjoyed that. People will hate saying it. Algebra, love it, really good. So which helps when I get spreadsheets because it is just algebra really. But yeah, maths part of it really, really enjoyed, but I think I've had such a focus. I remember, I'm pretty sure my partner's a psychologist, as a side note, so we often dig into my past and my childhood, shall we say. But I remember a conversation, it was with my nana. It was actually in Lanchester. If you're up towards Deanside, there's the fish and chip shop, or there used to be, we're going back a few years, the fish and chip shop and the corner shop that was there. Well, I remember a conversation, we're talking, I was about 9-year-old, and my nana, it said, "Oh, the accountant's just been out of the corner shop. I can't believe how much they were charging. It was £100 an hour plus that." And I just remember going, when £100 for an hour, that's the most I've ever heard anybody. And I for some reason that just clicked and went, "Oh, I want to be an accountant," over some tiny little detail from, and basically I got to about 13, 14, and then, right, well, my work experience, I want to try this, I want to get into accountancy. I remember my first business studies lesson, year 10, I remember to this day, I sat down, I'll be year 10, 14, maybe 14, 15, sat down on business studies, finance, day one. I remember the teacher talking, and I just remember going, it makes sense, makes complete sense. I almost arrogantly, as this will come across, I almost know it. It's just natural. It's like inbuilt into us. So then when I started looking at the finance and the business part of it, it's always just clicked with us. I see myself more as an entrepreneur than an accountant. That's the.
I was actually going to say what I'm finding interesting, having spoken to you, because I think when you first approached me, said that you were interested in coming on.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I remember this from your message, it's like, sitting and talking about business.
Yeah.
Now, I sat chatting to you, and you don't strike me even as someone that is, because I understand, like, sort of as a 9-year-old, you think money's going to be your answer to everything, don't you? Like, whatever's going on, just want to live. If I only had some money, that would be amazing. And then you reach adulthood, and you kind of realise that there's a bit more to it.
Yeah, definitely.
But just from what you've said, it seems you've kind of had that moment in your business studies lesson almost.
Yeah.
And that's where your real passion is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think where I was going with it is, I think when I got into accountancy, I didn't realise it was as businessy as what it is, and it might be because of the accountants I've worked at in the past. And what I mean by that is when I got my first proper accountancy job, I kind of thought, well, you'll do a tax return, you'll do a corporation tax return, do a VAT return, do whatever else, and then you maybe tell the client about it, and that's maybe it. And what I didn't realise is most small businesses, your only paid professional that you have is an accountant. You don't have somebody in HR, you don't have a business advisor, you don't have necessarily an insurance broker and not that I get into that, but is in you don't have somebody in marketing. We're talking small businesses. Yeah, you have your accountant and that's it. So what ended up happening? Your conversations went from, well, that's my tax bill. Oh, but actually, I really want to expand the business into this area. What would you think? And I'm not saying at 17 I was able to respond to that and be able to deal with that. But where I guess I've changed as an advisor is I've seen 2,000 businesses come and go across my desk in 15 years in the industry, and I've seen what they've done well, what they haven't done well, being able to advise them on this, get involved in that. And what I like to think is I've got quite a good general knowledge of business in general. So when somebody says I want to do this, my brain's just instantly like, well, you need to think about this, this, and this. Also, I've seen it fail on that business over there, so don't do. Well, obviously not mention names, but it's in. That didn't work, so you need to avoid that, or you need to plan around it. And I like that. That to me, it's kind of let me be almost. I run 300 businesses now, not just one, because I'm kind of living vicariously through some of my clients. And in my meetings, I do really get into that. Right. So how are you pricing these jobs? How are you making sure you're making money? Right? How are you handling your staff there? Are they doing what you need? And it just covers a lot of broad areas rather than. That's your tax bill. Move on, and that. Oh, I love that part of my job.
Are you kind of building? Is that just built into what you're offering, as it were?
Yeah.
You said that you've been very sort of specific in terms of where your business is. You know exactly what you're doing. You know exactly what you're offering.
Yeah.
You're ticking kind of every sort of box in the business studies handbook.
Yeah.
And but that's not an optional extra that you.
Yeah, it's just built into our prices, and that's because I guess I like doing it, and I'm sure we could charge for it if we want to, but it's more that I enjoy doing it, and that part of, I guess, like we mentioned, I'm going, well, originally it was £100 an hour. What brilliant! That's where I want to come from, a working class family where that's a lot of money to, whereas actually it's the getting involved with business and advising people and helping people. I think the big thing for me, and I've had quite a few clients that we've been through this, where we've, say, for example, started out in a business with 50,000 turnover, but then before we know it, in 2 or 3 years, we're at 500,000 turnover, and we're going, I've been part of that journey and helped you, and I'm not taking credit for doing it, but I'm helping you gear up towards it, get the right headspace to be able to do it, work out plans to be able to get there, and then obviously we're taking care of the accounts along the ways.
And you learn as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and then we apply, not necessarily apply that same framework, but right, that's what that client done well, so you need to think about that, or when you change that around, and learning from a lot of businesses. And then I like to think of myself as a sponge. I just take it all in, and then, right, well, how do I then help you get to there? And that very early on in my meetings, I like to, when we take on new clients, right, well, what's 5 year look like? Where do you want to be? Because tradesmen in particular it's quite a nice, pretty much everybody's got the same plan, which makes my life a bit easier. But if you're a 30-year-old, 35-year-old tradesman, you've really got to look at yourself and go, I can't be doing this for 20 years, because when you get 55, your body's just not able to be doing this. You can't be crawling around lofts at that age. You just, your body can't do it. So you either go, well, I need to grow the business and have 10 staff working for us to be able to then do that, or what a lot of the time it's, well, actually I want to own a couple of property, or we can talk about pensions as well, but I want to own a couple of properties, and that's my nest egg. That's me retirement plan. I've already got the tools to be able to renovate a house or be a landlord. And a lot of our advice is geared up to going, right, well, if that's where you want to be in 5-10 year time, what are we doing today to get there? And it's that working backwards to go, right, well, let's start putting money away for that. Let's start planning for it.
And you've seen the successful people, and you can kind of reverse engineer that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone that comes to
Yeah, and it's quite again, it just comes down to the niche focus, because if you cover every industry, it's quite hard to have that inside knowledge into everything, and it just purely by the volume of tradesmen and construction that clients that I've dealt with, we've now got that knowledge to be able to go, well, actually, this is what we need to do. This is exactly how we need to structure it, and go from there.
It's interesting listening, because clearly, just your whole approach to this is, as I say, it's more entrepreneurial rather than just this is what I do. Because initially we were talking about, I suppose, every man's in the trade. You concentrate on sort of your kitchens, doing your plumbing, I'll take care of your books, but you are more than that. You've taken this and you've thought, right, okay, this works here. I know that this is going to be very similar to that and that and that. So I've got this number of people, and I can apply my formula. And assist and give advice, or not official advice, but kind of point people in that direction so that they can get from here to here. And we know, because we've done it with them.
Exactly.
And it's going to work. And I suppose in a way, that's also feeding into your own business. And I guess my biggest challenge is, how do you capture the essence of that and actually explain that in a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post? Or it's, I guess, my biggest challenge with the business is it comes back to breaking the mold of the stereotype of the accountant, because that's not as much as we have legal obligations to be able to do things right, and obviously guidelines to follow. That's part of it, but actually that's only a little bit of what we do, and it's quite hard to capture that part of it. I think I've had that with my own business, the punctuation show. I mean, what I do is so I play in a band and I'm an English teacher. I've sort of combined those two, written songs about punctuation and grammar, and I travel around the country delivering my show. That is really hard to market, because it's not something that everyone does. I think I think it's a time thing in many ways, isn't it? It's like people are used to listening to sound bites, and it's like you speak, we don't need a punctuation. She's like, well, no, you don't need one. I'm trying to suggest something new
Yeah.
that will help your kids remember it, because
Yeah.
they're going to have fun. They're going to,
Yeah.
and you know what I mean? And it's that thing. And I can see, just talking to you, when you first contacted me, it's like, well, and I say this with most, I spoke to more than one gym stroke fitness experts.
Yeah.
But they're both very, very different.
Yeah.
And this is, and so speaking to you, I'm really glad I have, because there is so much more to this.
Yeah.
And I think calling it an accountancy in many ways doesn't really effectively describe it, because it's offering, it's not an accountant for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure you would be the best fit for me.
Yeah.
But that's, in no means a criticism.
Yeah.
It's just saying that you're a far better fit for these guys.
And I think that's where I think is a small business. The first year and a half, you have no choice but you need to make, you've got bills, you need to be taken on. But I think after that, and it's such a hard thing to get into the mindset of going, well, actually, I'm not the right fit for you, and we're not gonna be
quite brave. Or you've got to have a lot coming in to be brave enough to turn down the business.
Exactly, and I think it does then put you in the good position to go, well, actually, because what you want, especially when you've got a small team, you want your staff to enjoy coming to work. That is such a big part of people's lives, and I make sure we are. Not necessarily fun. Fun's not the right word, but as in the job satisfaction part of it. We make sure we get that right.
I don't think something wrong with saying it's fun. I mean, certainly you walk in, and as I said, I pulled up, and it's the first time I've seen your shop front.
Yeah.
And I've said as well, we share company colours.
Yeah.
Colours oranges. Like, I love it. I didn't even make the connection with the high vis. Until you pointed it out to me. But it's kind of, of course this makes sense. But it does come across as vibrant. It comes across as a bit more fun, or possibly down to earth.
And that is something we get quite a lot, the down to earth part of it, and that is very much my personality. Yes, well, I'm a chartered accountant, but that's not my personality. That's just a side product of what I've done over the last 12 years. But
I mean, look, because we're certainly, anyone that's been watching this far knows there's a difference. And I'm just thinking about like how that came about, because you said you didn't go the university route.
So it was quite.
Did you enjoy school?
Yes, but it wasn't right for us. So I think in school I was always that naturally didn't study, cramming a load of revision the 2 days before, and then I'll go and get A's or whatever the equivalent is to do. Is in school just was never set up for me. I'm very much I'll do it and then I'll learn it. I don't read about it. I don't watch a video. I've got to do something and then I'll understand it. And once it clicks, that's it forever. I understand it. So even up to year 11, the school route is. Well, sorry, not year 11, it'll be in sixth form. It's very much you need to apply to uni, you need to go down the university, you're a bright lad, and I'm like, but that's not me, it's not really what I want. And I still think schools are set up, or sixth forms are set up to push you towards the university route, and I'm just like, it's not me. And I mean, I had the grades to be able to go and get in Oxford or Cambridge if I wanted, but I'm like, it's not really what I want to do. I don't want it. I want to just go and learn my trade.
See, that's quite brave in itself. Just
much to my parents, I'd say not necessarily disappointment, but are you sure you're making the right decision? Absolutely, 100%. I'm making the right decision. I know that this is what I want to do, and that's where
your own mind at that age. And just with what we've just been saying about turning down clients. I mean, I suppose you could argue, it's questionable now, I think, sort of how much university would add to a sixth form leaver's life. Because they've got such massive debts, and I don't think there's the same guarantee. I think statistically, previously, it would add an extra, I think the statistic was it would add an extra 100,000 to your earnings of your lifetime. And that's why they brought in the students, because it was that rationale. I suspect we'll see a change from that moving forward, but sort of when you...
so my year was the last year that the university fees were cheap. So 2008, 9, I think they went up. And so if I'd went to uni then, I can't remember the exact figures, but it was something like £3,000 a year in university fees. If I went a year later, it's 10 grand a year, and that was the difference of how quickly it went. That wasn't really in my mindset, because obviously I was in the cheaper end anyway. But I guess where I had the opportunity or to be able to go and start out within accountancy and go, let's learn the trade. So I guess from starting at 17, by the time I was qualified, I think I was qualified by 21. A lot of people weren't even leaving university. Then you come out of university and you've still got to do your chartered exam. So university doesn't really make you become an accountant.
So you were fully qualified at
21, I think I was. 21, 22. Yeah. And then, so because I've then trained up so quickly, I mean, I was managing staff a lot older than us at the time. By the time I was 22.
And I've got friends who work for the big, however many are left.
Yeah.
But I just want to pause on that. And if you're fully qualified, because I know that sort of final exam is like a lot of people sweating like sort of blood and tears to get that. That's quite remarkable.
Yeah, and again, I think I'm quite lucky. I can pass exams quite. Again, it sounds arrogant, but I can pass exams by just cramming the knowledge in.
People I'm talking about, they all pass exams easily.
Yeah.
But they've also, I mean, anyone that I know has taken that final exam has said that's the hardest exam they've done.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, it's like driving tests, they don't always pass first time.
Yeah.
So it's to be qualified. So I mean, if you know, I know you're not bragging. You're clearly not bragging, but that is something that is worth. It is.
Again, it comes back down to it. Finance just clicked from day one. It just clicked and knew how finance worked. And I guess once something clicks with us, I understand it. And then once I understand, I don't need to kind of go back to it. I just know it and learn it. And I think one of the things that ACC in particular, you'll study. Far end of a thought, all these different things and I've probably used about 20% of it in my career, what I've actually studied. But what I think it's great at is I once had somebody explain it was this way, and since it made sense to us, it's not necessarily that you need to be able to remember everything you've done. What you need to do is you'll see something and then go, pretty sure there's something I need to know about here. I've read something about that, in being able to then go, right, hold on, I need to look into this a little bit more. Then you do your research again to go, actually, I understand what it was. But it's very much you just get a broad understanding. Then you've still got to go and look in and do the research into the specific thing, because obviously tax laws change every year, and we're in a Labour government as of last night. So things are going to change all over again. But yeah, it's I think being able to pass them at such it just meant I got straight into management. I then had a team. I think I was 23 and I had about 15 staff working for us in my second role, is in basically running two practices. I've been lucky in my career to make some good steps and be able to then learn how to manage, and I've got such a broad knowledge of industry in the roles that I've had, that I've then been able to kind of pile all that in and learn from all the mistakes, and then when we set up this business, from 17 up until I had a gap year just to spice things up. I went to Australia for a while. Maybe I'd say about 10 years, I think I'll have been employed across a couple of businesses, had a bit of time out, and then been set up here for a year maybe.
Was that an intentional part of the plan? Was it kind of like 10 years employed?
No, this was bad management from the role I was in at the time. So I was very much on a route to become a partner, buy into the practice, and that got pulled away from us at the last minute, or at least I felt as though it was getting pulled away from us, where that wasn't an option. And it's, hold on, I've just piled 2 years of my life into getting this, doing every hour under the sun, getting the business set up. So when you get some monumental news like that, it's like, what am I doing this for if it's getting pulled away? So that was here's accountancy for me. And you have that little bit of a life moment where you're going, well, is this still what I want to be doing? And I basically took 9 months out. I was working on a banana farm, carrying bananas to and from a trailer. Couldn't be any further different.
But it was that. Do that. I mean, I actually did that myself. I mean, I was working in recruitment. Just basically not enjoying my life like I should be.
Yeah.
and said to the wife, who was getting a bit frustrated with her job at the same time, I said she'll just go. She's
Yeah.
like travel.
Yeah.
Did exactly the same
Yeah.
thing, a little bit older than you, but travel around the world for a year.
Yeah, brilliant. But I think it gives you that realization. And for me, it especially towards me end of the time there, all I could think about was I need to come back, get my practice and certificate, which is just a legal bit of being able to then go off on my own as an accountant. But right, I'm coming back, I'm getting that. Then I'm setting up the practice. Okay, so let's start planning how that's going to look today. Is in, right, how do I want it to work, and start building on the name and all these. Yeah. So I had pretty much a 2.5 year period where I wouldn't say it's all I thought about. In my partner will back us up on this, but it's probably about half of what I thought of all the time. So it was all that thinking, that time, and being able to do it slowly rather than just jumping in and then regretting something. I had plenty of time to, right, how do I want this to work, and how do I want it to look, and touch wood. It's working so far, and we're ahead of the projections. But
yeah, I think I know what the answer's going to be to this. But it's just sort of from the conversation that we've had, you've made, shall we say, an unconventional decision not to go to university.
Yeah.
You've then been in a position where you've made an unconventional decision to go travelling.
Yeah.
You're then, with your business, you've made a decision to approach it in quite an unconventional way.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, certainly when I talk about my travel, it's, you must remember, or just leaving your job to go self-employed, or just leaving jobs to do anything. That's really brave.
Yeah.
You don't strike me as someone that thought it even crossed your mind that might be brave.
To me, failure is just not an option. Like my one fear in life is failure. So I make sure I do everything I can not to fail. So that's where you can plan, you can do different things. And for me, it didn't feel brave because I knew it would work. And again, it does sound confident, but what I mean by that is I will do absolutely everything to make sure it works. Like failure is just not an option. I'll be able to do it, and I'll take it in my stride. And I think having that mental resilience is, I see it as normal because I've always been like that. And I think, whereas I don't think that is that common. And I think being able to just, well, yes, I'll take criticism on board and I'll take feedback on board. But at the end of the day, what we need to be doing is I guess moving forward with what I want to be doing. And that's where you've got to be careful not to ignore people that you trust opinion, but it is in, well, actually, what I've done so far in my career has worked, so why wouldn't this work? It's just my natural next step. And so I can see how it would come across as brave, but it's more of a confident that I'll get there. It might be.
What is unusual, in fact, I'm not sure I've met anyone else like this, is...
That could be a good thing or a bad thing.
So I won't be the judge. I'm just picking up on when you said failure is not an option.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, I've just through discussions with other entrepreneurs and just about life in general. I've said myself, and I don't think not necessarily in context of what you've said there, but you kind of have to fail in order to learn.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say failure is not an option.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of failure. They tend to be much more sales focused,
right.
And they're saying that in a really kind of arrogant way, and you know, like sort of these sort of evangelical trainers.
Yeah.
You're not coming across like that in any way, shape, or form.
Not a salesman at all.
When you say failure is not an option, you just seem really focused, really methodical in how you've approached everything.
Yeah.
And it's almost, it's like just, you're planning.
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, like certain things might have fallen into place.
Yeah. And of course, things get moved off path, and then you've got to reassess it and redirect. But
you seem a really methodical person in terms of like sort of really analytical.
Yeah.
This is how I'm going to get to where I need to be.
In systems is a large part of that, and it's we have a system to make a system. As ridiculous as that sounds, you've got it's having clear direction, and then follow through and on and go. That's the direction. Okay, that's how we're going to get there. Okay, this is the step by step that we're going to take to get there, and that's where we're very system. And I'm so lucky with the team that I've got they buy into it and are on that journey with us. But we basically systems. Yeah. Everyone's got their own role, but then within that, you've this might be hard to explain, but to me, there's systems and there's principles which are cross over so much. But if you put a system in place, going do this, this, and this, yes, that's fine. But that's like reading off a computer screen to get there. So what you have to have is a system, but it's a principle-based system. So what to me that means is, right, that's what we're doing, but more importantly, this is why we're doing it, and this is what the outcome should be. Because what that then it lets people have the interpretation to go, okay, right, I've followed that, but that isn't right for this client, or that's not going to work because well, okay, but I know what we're trying to achieve out of it, so therefore actually I need to change that and I need to do something differently to be able to get there. So it's very much system driven, but also giving people the ownership to go, actually, that's not going to work the way we want it to work there, and be able to change it. It's not Jordan says do this, so we'll do this, and I follow it blindly, and before you know it, the building's on fire because we haven't thought about it. It's a right, this is what we're doing, but also this is what we're trying to achieve out of it. And then once you get that understanding, it kind of gets you where you want to be, rather than just following a process.
So what's the future look like then for accounts for the trades?
Well, I think we're probably at a point where we've we had a 3-year plan and we're here. So now we've pretty much 3 year and 4 months I think into the business. But we're at a point where I'm still trying to work out where we go with it, where we take it next. And I think what we've learned, so, and again, come back to your point of or the point I made about I won't fail. I see mistakes and failure being different. So we've made tons of mistakes. That's different to failing. The mistakes we've learned from, and that I'm happy for. Happy probably sounds the wrong word, but I am happy for us to make mistakes because we'll learn from it, and then we'll understand. Yeah, because failure is more of a grander. That's where we're going with the business in my head, whereas the mistakes, absolutely, we'll make mistakes and then we'll learn from it, and then change.
Failure would be a destination.
Yeah, failure's me, I guess. Closing the office for the last time and going back, that's it. We're out of business. That's a point in the hypothetical point in the future that I hope never happens. But
make sufficient, learn from and ensure that the failure
exactly, and then again come back to the systems partner. And I've worked in a few places that don't necessarily do this well. It's trying to, you have your system in place, but then as soon as something breaks, I quite often hear the no blame culture, which is a big kind of buzzword in well, not necessarily just accountancy, but it's don't blame one person. And I kind of, and the staff know how to take it, so it doesn't come across as horsey as what it's about. But we do need to blame somebody, and that's not a blame and then shout at you and you've got disciplinary. It's right, I need to understand why that didn't work, because then we're going to change it. And it's not a blame. Blame's not a bad word as I think people sometimes see it as. Where what I like to do, if something goes wrong, well, who done it wrong? And if it's human error, absolutely fine. That's a mistake. Let's get on with it. It's just one of those things. Let's get over it, move on. As long as the building's not on fire, we're fine. That kind of approach. But if it's something where we're going, it didn't work because of this, well, that's not your fault in the first place. That's the system's fault. So let's go and change the system instantly. And we're very much if something goes wrong like that, it changes. We just adapt straight away. And again, having such a new team, we're able to just adapt so quickly to things. But yeah, it's the blame culture is I kind of use it as a strength. It's not a shouting at anybody. It's let's understand it and dissect it.
I suppose you're a very unique person. You've created a unique approach, and I think you've got a unique business, which it sounds to me you do have the method, you've got the strategies.
Bit of madness.
And that is obviously a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to round up the podcast. We'll be honest with you, the thought of coming and speaking to an accountant didn't fill me with enthusiasm.
It's very honest of you.
No, I am being honest. It didn't fill me, but having come down this morning, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Me as well.
I find you quite inspirational, the way you're approaching
Thank you.
everything. I've no doubt whatsoever that this business will go from strength to strength. And John, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Cheers.